Hello, y'all. I am fortunate enough to be here today with Mr. Jeremy Torisk. Jeremy, who are you and what the heck are you doing here today?
That's a good question. I'm a man of many hats these days. Being an entrepreneur, you have to kind of have a lot of lines out in the water to catch the big ones. So, primarily at the center of my hub, if you look at a wheel with all the spokes that I have holding up that wheel to roll the business forward, at the center, I'm a professional speaker, and everything kind of keys off from there. And so then we say, well, who do you speak to? What's my ideal audience? Well, biggest mistake most professional speakers say, well, anyone who will pay me to be on a stage, right? So we had that for a while, but as time's gone on, I've really clarified my message into trying to have the biggest impact. And that has come down to basically inspirational speaker because of my past, where I've come from and what I've had to overcome to get to where I got to, I don't know, 30 years ago to 20 years ago. And then the last 10 years have been just skyrocket success, amazing stuff. But that's the kind of the road, the Goliaths I call, that I had to overcome to get to those last 10 years. And then the last 2 years, like I said, to kind of focus in on who I speak about and who I really have the most impact with are entrepreneurs, small to mid-size, who want to get a business against much larger competitors in a market. So that's where I made my bones the last 10 years. That's where I took 3 different companies from $2 million to $60 million, very, very small companies beating out billion-dollar corporations very, very consistently from a system I came up with. So we talk about slaying Goliaths and overcoming adversity. And that's what I speak on. And those speeches feed those other spokes: the consultant, the author, the facilitator, the masterminder, the platform owner. All comes from that stage.
Sure. And so for you, you've been up to a lot of things in business in the past. At what point did you kind of make that pivot into, hey, you know what? I'm not just a consultant. I'm not just a business person. I'm a speaker now. At what point did that pivot happen?
Well, you had to look at the biggest bang for the buck. So if I'm a consultant, how do I get clients? If I'm a facilitator, how do I get clients? If I am a coach, how do I get clients? And the speaking puts you in front of your ideal clients. And instead of making 10 calls in a day or 100 calls or sending out 10 emails or 100 emails or mailers, I go on a stage and I could talk to anywhere from 10 to 1,000 people. And I can make sure that those people are each individual small to medium-sized business owners who compete against larger companies and are looking for an advantage. That's my guys. Those are my gals. So I try to get those events. And from there, the keynote speech is done in such a way with science and art that they don't realize you're kind of inspiring, but also guiding them and pushing them into your products. You don't do it blatantly, but that's where the art comes in and the science to keynote speaking.
And so I kind of got to ask, how do you bring a business from 2 million to 60 million to compete against the Goliaths?
So there are 3 different Goliaths that we kind of overcame to do that. The first one was being myself. We had to get out of our own heads. So my first Goliath was my negative talk, my thinking it wasn't possible, my being happy with the status quo. A lot of people would die for $2 million revenue business, right? We were at 15%, 12%, 27 employees, okay company, but we were fishing in a big pond, $1 billion pond. We were construction for telephonic fiber optic construction. So AT&T, Comcast, Facebook, all of these big groups, Verizon, Windstream. So 2 million on a national level isn't a lot of money, but our competitors are literally Mastech and Fiberdon and all these companies. Companies have been there for years in these backwood country, type neighborhoods and regions. So after we got out of our own head, which is our first Goliath, was thinking proactively, changing our language. Then we said, how do we win business? So the first one that we went after was how do we overcome being small? How do we make our that being a good thing? Well, we did it with innovation. So we went to Dallas. We were doing in that market about $2 million a year. We came up with a way to give the billing and the invoicing along with this electronic copy of the proof of the work we did. So the inspectors for AT&T didn't have to go out and look at the work. It was so good with geomapping and before and after timestamps. Once they gained our trust that these were really the pictures, they actually incorporated that across the whole country. AT&T did. We created that.
Wow.
So we went from $2 million a year to $20 million a year for AT&T in 1 year because of innovation.
Wow.
So we call that the innovation Goliath, being the small Goliath, or, make yourself seem bigger, right? And that's how we did it. We overcome that shortcoming by making it a strength. So you take a weakness and you make it a strength. The second thing we did was kind of like the good old boy. We've been around forever. You're not getting in our neighborhood. That was a hard one to overcome. So what that Goliath was community and involvement and commitment. We told them, we're not going anywhere. You're our biggest client. We're here. We're putting out a lot of money to be here. So whenever you tell us to do something, you're our highest priority. We're going to jump. We're going to do it. We're going to, come what may. You say jump, we say how high. Where the people who've been there for years took them for granted. They were always getting other work. They were out of town. They knew they would be there when it got busy. They were saying no on the small stuff when that's what we were getting. But once they saw that we made their jobs easier for them, we were doing things that were over and above, they started giving us shares from the other guys. So that was getting around like the good old boy neighborhood network. And so those are a couple of the little ways that we got, just kept growing. We put that into every market. And then the last one was we systemized it. We made the McDonald's of telephonic construction across the U.S. If it worked for AT&T, it will work for Windstream. It'll work for Facebook. It'll work for Windstream. It'll work for Comcast. And we just got everybody doing the same thing with a couple exceptions. But we actually streamlined such a great process that's how we grew from 2 million to 20 million to 60 million just by scaling. We ended up with 870 workers, 27 employees. The rest of them were subcontractors doing 60 million. And I did that 3 times with 3 different companies. It's a repeatable system that is profitable. And that's what I took and applied over the last 10 years of my career in that business.
And so it sounds like you were absolutely killing it at that time. At what point did you make the decision, hey, you know what? The ROI on my time spent is greater helping speakers, entrepreneurs, and coaches, whoever your target clients are now. At what point did you make that pivot?
Well, in 2019, for all the 3 of those companies, I was an employee. I was in the C-suite. So I was the operations, or I was VP of engineering, department, whatever the part. You always wear a sales hat. Everybody wears a sales hat. So if they needed somebody to run an engineering group out of Indiana, well, that would be me, right? So they wanted somebody to run the crews out in Virginia. That would be me, because it's still the same. All the systems are the same, no matter if it's engineering department, if it's payroll, if it's billing. However, all the pictures that we did for the billing and stuff, doesn't matter. Once you're in that top C-suite, you take the role on, the responsibility for the whole company. You don't say, well, that's not my department. You work with the people from those department, you make it work. When you do that, you make yourself invaluable. And once you are invaluable, they can't lose you. They don't want to lose you. It's really hard to replace great people. So I actually was going to quit because I had saved up $1 million in cash. We were in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, doing all the storm work, and I wasn't spending any money because I wasn't traveling a lot, and we were just on island forever, like a year. And after that stuff in 2015, I think it was 14. And so it was just, I didn't have to work anymore. So in 2019, I was just tired of it. And I said I was going to quit, and they made me an equity partner, which means I have 10% ownership of the company, but I didn't have to put any money in. So all I had to do was forego my bonuses if the company wasn't doing well, because I was an owner now. And I was like, well, I have no doubt the company's going to do well. I run it. So I didn't lose any money by doing that. No skin. But then a company came in and backed the Brinks truck up and paid the 2 primary owners, just I wouldn't say hundreds of millions, but it was tens of millions of dollars. It was a high 9-figure deal, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-figure deal. And so I got 10% of that money in 2021 when the whole deal was done. Those deals take years. And then you had
Huh.
COVID on top of that. But we got through it. We were supposed to do $6 million in EBITDA. So if you look at it, about 10% of the 60 million is EBITDA. So 6 million in EBITDA. We did $80 million our last year, over $8 million in EBITDA. And so they were very happy with us, and they paid us out our contract in full. And in 2021, I literally had millions of dollars in the bank and nothing, no real draw to stay with that. I mean, I was going to be at the very bottom of this big corporation now because the big corporation bought us, and I just didn't want to start over. And when you have that kind of money, you don't need to start over. And that's why I left. And I came here and I started the Torisk Pro Advisors at first, where I was coaching. And then how do I, because I did this so many times, I could do it for anyone else. But where do the customers come from? So I started spending money on coaches and started spending money on advertising and looking for this and that and getting scammed over and over again and being a victim to changing algorithms and all that stuff. And then I found out about speaking and getting in front of that ideal client and getting paid to speak. So instead of paying for advertising, now I get paid to go on stage. I get paid to go to some great places out of the country and around the country and bring my wife with me, get paid. And I have a steady flow of my ideal client coming to me because I move them. I gave them, an impactful meaning and some real tangible actions that they can go put in their business. But then now they want you long-term after that.
When you do those gigs where they're, paid gigs, do you sell from stage, or do you sell your product from stage and services from stage, or do you kind of sell yourself so they feel, oh my gosh, I've gotten so much freaking value from Jeremy. I want to continue having him in my life, however that may be. What does the sales process look like that you do?
Yeah, there's two different ways I answer that. First one is depends the stage you're on. You go to a Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone, you're probably paying them 5, 6, 8, 10,000 to be on that stage because they've got their audience so trained to be pitched at, punched in the face. Buy this. This is to change your life. Half off in the back right now. Run. And they get up and they knock each other over to get to your product. That's very rare. And I don't do that. I prefer to go to a stage where I can move people with an impactful message that they can take and bring them from maybe some of them suicidal, right? Because I have a lot of experience with that in my life. And I know that there's people you just don't know where they are in their life. So I might be saving someone's life. That's where really the responsibility that I take when I'm up on that stage. 2, being funny and touching people with my heart, with making them laugh. 2, dropping this, again, it's the science and the art, dropping these very, very cloaked messaging that I help people who do what they do. And the way you do that is you don't say, and see me afterwards and I can sell you this. What you do is you say in the middle of your speech and you're talking, is you say, I just talking to a client of mine the other day with this particular problem. And I know that they have this problem because I did a good job on the front end. And I make somebody up, even if I didn't do this, I just make somebody up, a client that I helped with a problem that I know they have. And I tell them how I fix this client's problem. And I do it in a story form, and I do it in a way where they put themselves in my client's shoes. And now they just know that I do that. I don't have to sell. So I call it sneaky selling. That's what I call it. It's subliminal almost. And so that's how I do it. But I have a scientific opener, and then you have a roadmap, then you have your first story, then you have a point, then you have a transition, and your second story, second point, transition, callback, third story, third point, double callback, hint to close. If there's a QA, that's where you do your QA. Then you do your takeaways. Then you do your power close. That is the science of it. The art comes in finding the hooks, the repeatable hooks. The art comes in those takeaways that you're collecting is repeating them throughout the program so these people know. The art of it is not having them sitting down and writing every word you say. The art is having the ability to have them write down what they're going to do. And so you're getting them involved. They're bought in. They've got written stuff that they're going to go put actionable things. That's the art. That's the hard part. The art is telling about going from I grew up and I was homeless when I was 17. I was digging ditches and I found out that my father wasn't my dad. And two, not using the I so much. I call it you-and-izing a story, taking those I's and making them a you so that you're telling it from their client's perspective. That's a very tricky part of speaking, but that's what we do. That's what we specialize in. We call them drop mic moments.
I think that's a really interesting thing that we can hit on right there, because I think a lot of speakers have that opportunity or that problem where they're telling a story on stage about themselves, but they need to find out the best way to make it relevant to the audience so the audience can see themselves in the speaker's shoes to take the action and overcome whatever obstacle that the speaker had for themselves. What kind of framework do you have for that?
Well, there are tricks to that, and there are plenty of them, and it depends on the kind of story. That one trick, let's call it the Me Too. Let's say I was telling a story about my somebody I didn't that stole from me. Somebody that is, the trick is to finding out from your event planner who's going to be in your audience. Now, the best way is to ask for some phone numbers and talk to some people, or second best is to be there early and mingle and talk to some people. So once you know about some specific problems that a bunch of people have, you create a story around that. And instead of telling it firsthand, again, it's like I helped somebody with this problem, but the Me Too is here's the trick, here's the art. Here's how most people would say it. Who in this room has had a partner steal from their company? Who in this room has had a partner gamble away $10,000 of revenue when payroll was done? Who are you speaking to, right? You got 1,000 people, 500 people, 250 people. Nobody knows who you're speaking to. I'm going to give you a different way. Have you ever had a partner take $10,000 out of the bank account to give to his wife to go shopping when payroll was due? Have you ever had that happen to you? Now, who am I looking at? There's 250 people, but who am I talking to? What are they hearing? Have I ever? And it's not have you, it's have I ever. So if I've been in a business for a while, has this ever applied to me? Something like that might have. So when I say, have you ever had somebody do this? The hands go up, more hands go up than the other way. Then you say, me too. Me too. Let me tell you what happened to me. Now it's okay to tell about it because they're emphasizing with you, or they're empathizing with you because you know what happened to them. It's happened to you. Now you can tell their story with a little bit of grace because you're telling their story. And so that's the Me Too trick.
And so you've obviously learned these kinds of tricks of the trade with plenty of practice. And one thing that I know about you is not true. Share more.
No, I've paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to the best speakers in the world to teach me these things.
Who are some of those people that you've learned from?
Craig Valentine, Dr. Craig Schneider, Les Brown is the Craig Valentine lineage. We have Larry Long Jr. is one of the guys out there that I'm really close with. I can go on and on.
Sure.
Ann McNeil is the mastermind. She's got the Think and Grow Rich mastermind. If you want to know anything about mastermind, start following Ann McNeil. Yeah, these people I paid them tens of thousands of dollars. Ray Leone, that's book right behind me, right there. Ray Leone on the sales funnel. I am probably one of the top 10 salespeople in America as far as sales training, because I'm the only person in America whose last name isn't Leone that's licensed to teach the sales funnel, because I've licensed it through the Leones, because I've learned so much from Ray and his son, Tony. I've been to so many of their trainings that they let me license it. And I do videos, and I have video e-courses on sales funnel. So again, those spokes I was talking about, e-courses. You create it once, it's out there, you never have to do it again. You have to just advertise on it. So I paid, you think I wasn't a salesperson, but I used to close $180 million deals.
Sure.
And Ray taught me some of the biggest tricks, psychological tricks behind how to speak to people. And it's not NLP. It's just about causing latent pain. And this is what I do. I took
Mm.
that sales trick, which was causing somebody pain to close a deal, and brought it to stage. And I caused the people in the audience pain. Latent pain means they didn't even know they had it before I came out and talked to them. But after I'm done with them, they're hurting. And the more they hurt, the more expensive the aspirin.
I actually saw a quote today from George Orwell, and he was saying the best kind of advertising is when you sell the person the solution and the problem they didn't even know they had at the same time.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're finding
And
out. And the way to do that is by asking questions. And how do you ask questions from stage? The Me Too is one of them. That's one way. Have you ever? And you do your due diligence. You look up the people. If you got some names, go early, talk to them, know your audience. And if you know the industry, you know their problem.
Sure.
I tend to talk to people in the construction industry because I know construction, tacit in knowledge of construction. I know their pain. But that goes over to any small service business, landscaping, any home services business has the same problems construction companies have, the same problems with employees, the same problem with costs, the same problem with advertising, finding clients, making sales. It's all the same.
I know I was at an event that I spoke at in February a few months back, and someone I had just had on guest here, he mentioned that strategy of, hey, get to know your, people in the audience and start the conversation before even getting on stage. That way, when you get on stage, you can look at them. It's like you're just continuing the conversation. So I want to ask you, what questions have you found are the most applicable questions to find out, to ask the audience before getting on stage to help you deliver the best speaking gig possible? What are those questions you ask the audience before getting on stage?
Well, I find out from the audience members what their problems are, and then I just work those problems into stories that will give the results that they want.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
it'll change every single speech that I go to. I was at the Tampa Bay, it's right out of Tampa. It's like the Florida Steel chapter of, they sell steel. That's what they sell. And talk about a small business. It's a very small industry. They sell these big things for steel to build refrigerators and all these things. So, I went there a day early, and they let me do that. They paid for the hotel for 2 days, and they let me go to the dinner and stuff. And then talking to the people, it was about how to be different. How can they stand out? Because they're so small, their clients all share each other. So they have to kind of always, it's an incestuous kind of thing. So I taught them how to, instead of showing up whenever they get a call from a client that they couldn't get into before, because Joe had it, right? Joe's just as good as me. We sell the same thing. They don't need the product. Joe sells the product. The price it's a commodity. The steel is steel. So find out what the underlying problem is. Why are they calling me? There had to be some sort of triggering event that came up that they called me. And so when I go in there, I'm not going to just assume that the solution Joe gives them is the same solution I'm going to give them. I'm going to ask them an underlying question, and maybe they don't even know. Maybe it's a problem with communication. Maybe it's a problem with the delivery is always late. Maybe it's a problem of the billing is always late. Maybe it's a problem of they really cause their AP a problem because they don't send their invoicing in on time. So if you find out that exact problem, then you can package your solution and results and sell them on that. That's that pain we're talking about, solving their pain instead of just giving them your solution. Find out what the problem is, the pain, and give them the result. And so that's what I spoke about, is about how to ask deficient questions, or different questions that will cause a deficit. How can you come up with questions that cause deficit, that cause pains when you go into these clients' office who you've never been able to get through, but you saw the same problem, the guys in this room? Because I ask, have you ever had a guy next to you left or right in this room, but where you can't get in there, you're selling the same thing, and vice versa? And all the hands went up. Yeah, they all have these clients that they've got relationships with. When I taught them kind of how to beat each other, and that it's kind of weird. to do that because it's a small industry. But
Hmm.
for example, that's where I went deep on that. After that night spending with them, I went upstairs and I got my whole story changed from what I was going to do to deficit questions.
Huh. That brings up an interesting point of some of the best speakers out there. Their skill is not necessarily speaking, but it's more doing kind of what you just said of adapting the problem you're going to speak on to make sure it's relevant to the audience, even if you have to pivot right before you get on stage. For you, I know you personally, so I know you had some experience in the Florida, was it Florida Speakers Association or NSA Florida chapter? Is that right?
Yes, NSA is the National Speakers Association. Florida has two chapters. The South Florida chapter, which is NSA FSA, Florida Speakers Association. So, I told you I grow organizations. I scale things. That's what I do. And so I went to an NSA meeting 3 years ago in Vegas, not knowing anything, just knowing I wanted to speak. And I heard about these chapters. And this is right after COVID. So FSA was created in 1980, right? Some of the biggest speakers in America came through the Les Brown came through Florida Speakers. He was one of their first members in 1980. So when I went to a meeting, when I came back from the national thing, there were 8 people in this room, and there were 3 people on a makeshift computer doing a Zoom hybrid thing. They meet once a month, and what Florida Speakers Association does is it doesn't teach you how to speak. That's
Hmm.
Toastmasters.
Okay.
Florida Speakers brings in other speakers from around the country. They bring them in once a month to speak to us, and then they tell us what they're doing in their business to become $1 million speaker. Now, does somebody
Gotcha.
make $1 million from speaking? Not on stage, unless your last name is, Dan Marino, or,
Sure.
you're famous for cutting off your own arm, right? Because you got stuck under a boulder and you were there 3 days and you had to cut off your own arm to get free. No one's paying $1 million for telling people how to be happy and how to sell more stuff, right? That's not how you make $1 million. These people come in and tell us how they get $1 million speaking businesses by exactly what I started this call with. Speaking is the hub. They tell us how to leverage that stage and get consulting, get training, build communities, become a mastermind, do facilitating, emceeing, coaching. So every month we bring in a different speaker. And so we had 8 people. And so who's going to come talk to 8 people? Nobody. Nobody is. After 4 months, with me kind of doing my thing, with reaching out to all these national speakers and just kind of doing my thing with, I do ROR. I don't do ROI. So I look at stuff a little different. It's return on relationships, not return on
Ooh.
investments. So I'm building these relationships with these speakers. And I bought a bunch of this video equipment. I don't know if this will work, but yeah, there you go. See, I'm in a studio. In front
Oh,
of me, I got a
wow.
bunch of lights and cameras, and I got green screen out back over here. I wonder if we can see it. Yeah, there's a big folded up green screen. I could put somebody on any stage in the world, make it look like they're talking at Madison Square Garden right from this room. So I brought all this stuff to the meeting. And so when I told these speakers from around the country, we don't have many members, but I will film you. It's post-COVID. Everyone's looking for work. Your stuff's old. You're talking about new stuff because the world changed after COVID. Anybody that was talking about something before COVID talked about something different after, because the whole business, every business was impacted by it. And so these speakers needed to change their message. They had no tape. So they could come to my studio or our chapter and speak to us, and they would get this great 2-camera shoot. And after my first 4 months, we were up to like 20 people coming to these meetings. And so they made me the president because it was time to vote. And I had never been paid to speak. And I'm like, you guys have been speaking for years. And they're like, look, Jeremy, the president isn't the best speaker. The president is the one who grows this chapter. He's responsible for the chapter. The board reports to the president and serves him. The president serves the board serves the members. Well, we had a horrible member base, but we had about 5 or 6 great people on the board. And so I rented a yacht my first week as president. And I said to the people who were coming, if you're on the boat, you're on the board. And so we went from like 4 people on the board to 12 people because I opened it up to everyone that was coming. And that helped get more things done and help with the attitude and help with momentum. After year number 1, we had 54 members. This is our second full year now. We're at 70 members right now.
Wow.
Right. And so now the biggest speakers come and speak with us because of the Zoom, the crowd, and the people that come. We have like 40 people in the room, and another 20 people on Zoom every month. And so Michelle Villalobos and Kelly Swanson and Bill Stainton and Jeff Hoffman, and these are the people that come speak to us every month. And they grow our business, not just teach us how to speak. We don't tell some people. Bill Stanton's definitely going to tell us how to write a story. He's got 26 Emmys. He's won 26 Emmys. We're going to figure out how to write a keynote next month. Last month was Michelle Villalobos, how to grow a big back end, which means I've got a mastermind. Maybe I have 5 people who paid $1,000 to be in my mastermind. What happens after month number 5 or week number 5 when it ends? Well, you roll them into the next thing. And she taught us how to build this big back end, the community building. That comes from people who are $1 million business owners in the speaking world. That's how I grew as a business and professional speaking business. And that's how I can claim to be a great speaking coach when I've only been paid to speak a handful of times. I just haven't been in it long enough. But I got 2 referrals in the last 2 days to go speak from people who haven't come to our meetings in months because they see what I'm doing online and they see what I'm doing with the Successful Speaker Program. Once that means that you go from being thought of to being a thought leader. There's 5 steps to that. And I'm becoming more of a thought leader. When people think of a speaker, they think of you. That's what you want.
That's interesting. And are all National Speakers Association local chapters as successful as what you've been able to pull off?
Not by a long shot. Most of them are treading water. Some of them were already more successful. Colorado is one of the most successful ones I know about, over 100 members and dynamite. North Texas is pretty strong. Tampa is also pretty strong, but they don't have the growth that we have. We have probably the highest growth in the whole country. I would venture to say year over year, 2 years running, we have the fastest growth of engaged, especially, remember this, talked about this before we went on air. You could have 1,000 people watching your YouTube channel and 0 sales. You could have 100 YouTube watchers with 50 sales. Which one do you want?
Right.
All right. So Colorado, I'm not saying that they don't have engaged members. They do, but I'm not going for 150 members. I'm going for the most engaged members I could possibly get. We have 70 members. 50 of them are there every month on Zoom or in person. And they wrote, a couple people miss, a couple people go, and they're speaking, or they got a daughter's wedding, or something comes up. It's important, but we tape it and they can see it. We are going from a 40-person. I'm sorry, we have 70 members. About 40 people show up regularly. We have a contract that we signed at the beginning of the year for these rooms. It only fits 20. We have standing room, people standing for these meetings. They're 4-hour meetings.
Wow.
I signed a new contract for next year for a 100-seat room. We went from $1,000 a month to $2,700 a month. Food for 50 and seats for 100. What does that tell you? All right. That tells you that I know 70 gets us 40 in person. Next year, I'm going to have 100 people in person. I know it. We're going to have 100 people in that room. It means we're going to have 200 members at the end of next year at this growth, at this pattern. And the speakers who are coming to speak with us, that only goes up. The more people you get, the more opportunities they get to. And we have great auctions, by the way. These are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Every one of these speakers have these programs. We auction them off too. So there's always 1 or 2 people of our members who get a Michelle Villalobos year-long program for $2,000. It's really crazy. We have great value in that. And so that's what Florida Speakers teaches you. And if you want to learn how to speak, Toastmasters is great for that. It's time consuming. I'm a president of a Toastmasters. We meet once a month, and it's a professional speakers only club. And we don't count the ums and the ahs, and we go every month. You get to speak, and you get about 10 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, 7 minutes of your keynote, and we're going to help you build that thing. And that's what I took over from that concept over to my successful speaker program, where I give 3 hours a week now, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for an hour a day. I work with speakers on Zoom, and I work on all the stuff we're talking about.
I'm going to ask a question that I think would be relevant to that person that you just described would be on your Zoom calls. You mentioned earlier ROR. I've never heard that before, but I think I understand it. Return on relationships. For
Yeah, I lost my mic. Oh, here's another one. That's a
For-
mic drop, right?
unintentional mic drop, right? For the speaker that is aspiring speaker that they know they have an awesome story, but they're just kind of getting started, just starting to push gas, or maybe they're still looking to find where the gas pedal is, metaphorically. Can anybody join any NSA chapter? Or let's say I'm in California and I want to go to your chapter. How can I do that?
So California is another one of those that have a great chapter. In fact, every chapter has some sort of academy. So if I've never spoken before, it's my really first foray into it, you'll probably join the academy. And so the typical membership for these clubs run from $200 a year to $500 a year. We're at the top. But the $200 a year, you have to pay for your meetings. We get $500 a year, like $475, but everything's included. You never pay. You walk in, you get breakfast, you get to come to every meeting, you get the videos, you get to do the auctions. It's all inclusive. So you're going to end up spending about $500 a year, and it's 9 meetings. You're going to go to 9 meetings and a banquet and a holiday party and maybe some mid-month masterminds. So it's a lot of stuff. So when you break it down, it's pennies. It's no money at all. You have to be you need to do it. If you're thinking about speaking, you need to belong to an association because that's your community, right? Now, California has an academy that is probably second to none. So we don't have a local academy. We enroll our people in the California Academy because it's all virtual. So we let our members who want to be in the academy pay California, and then California pays us a little bit of it back. It's about $2,000 for the year. But, it's a lot more hands-on, and they teach you how to write the speeches. The same stuff I do on my successful speaker program. It's basically a year-long academy. So we have different people. We talk about those 50 topics that they would talk about in the academy. We talk about it once a week on my call. So, yes, you could join anywhere. And because ours is so over the top with Zoom, if you're in California, it's a very big state. If you don't want to drive to LA and you live in San Fernando Valley and traffic is a bitch anyway, right? Maybe you're going to Zoom into California. Well, maybe you join Florida because it's not on the same day. So maybe you join both, because when you don't live in Florida, you actually get half off. So instead of $500, it's only $250 because you're going to be on Zoom. We're not paying for a seat. We're not paying for food. So for us, it's free money. So we discount the membership in half for the Zoom if you don't live in Florida. And we have a great Zoom experience because I have microphones on all the tables. So when people are asking questions of the speakers and they're having an engagement, the Zoom people hear great. And we all hear the Zoom people awesome because I bring speakers. And so when the speaker's engaging with the Zoom crew, I call them, everyone in the room they see the speaker, they see the Zoom person, and they're hearing the dialogue. So it's a very, very great experience for both.
I was talking to someone earlier today that he's just kind of getting started in speaking. He's doing about a few gigs every quarter at this point. And the way he gets gigs is he simply Googles call for speakers, and he's got a nice site, and he's got the whole, EPK, the electronic press kit and everything that's all set and ready. He's got his fees around $3,000 fee per gig. That's how he does it. But it's a lot of manual, kind of like sales. Like it's as if he was his own SDR, right?
Yes, that's right.
How does he go from that to the next level? Is he reaching out to speakers bureaus? Is he going to different
I'm not a fan of that.
Is he going to masterminds, getting referral gigs? How does he kind of level up as a professional speaker?
Well, Craig Valentine talks about going from standing ovations to standing invitations, right? And that just means serving enough people, letting enough people know what you do, overvaluing, providing more value than they ever expect. And you'll start being invited back more and more over time. I personally have gotten the most success. I have 200. There's two things. There's a lot. You have to do a lot of ways. You have to do it's all of the above, by the way. but I have a VA that does most of the manual stuff for me that he's doing. I have a VA that does most of that for me. But there's something called the Association Insights. And when you join Florida Speakers, you get a free membership into that or free access into ours. So I have my VA go and download hundreds of information from that every month. And I have hundreds of event planners' names, phone numbers, email addresses, your event name, where the event's going to be held, how much they paid last time for which speaker, what's the next thing going to be, and we send these. We have these 5-point outreach program that my VA does 3 of them. I have to do 2 of them when we get nibbles. So that's where most of my kind of growth comes from. Is I've got access to this database that's crazy, a lot of data, but you have to mine it. And I have a VA I've taught her how to do it. And so my speakers who I help, I charge a bit of a monthly fee to have them have access to it. And then if they want my VA to send them their outreach program, they pay part of her salary, and then I get part of their back end. Anything over $5,000. So if they got something for $2,000, I wouldn't take anything. But if they got 5,000 or more, I get 20% of that. So that's how I do it. But Ann McNeil called me yesterday in Nova Southeast Law School, wants to have someone talking about masterminds. She is the mastermind queen. She can't do it. She gave him my name. All right.
Wow.
So just because I've known these people, and I had a hack too, man. You're gonna love this one. I'm the programmer, right? So I bring all these speakers in, and they go, "Where should I fly into?" Well, we're in Fort Lauderdale, but I know they pay for their own flights, and I reimburse them. But I say, listen, you can come to Fort Lauderdale, or you can come to Miami, because Miami is cheaper, more flights, more options, and I'll pick you up, so it doesn't matter. Well, I tell them to go to Miami because instead of a 20-minute drive to the hotel, it's a 2-hour drive because they come during rush hour usually. And I go pick them up. Now I got this world-class famous speaker in my truck for 2 hours that I'm just getting to know. Yeah, that's my hack.
That's awesome. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And then I also say this. Don't worry about coming in early on Friday, because we all have our thing second Saturday of every month. Come in on Friday anytime. Doesn't matter what time, even if it's 7 in the morning. I'll pick you up. I've got 3 offices in my studio. And they go, "Oh, you have a studio?" "Yeah, we have a recording studio." "Well, maybe I can do some film." "Yeah, shot film. Yeah, I won't even charge you." So I film a lot of them, and then we do podcasts with a lot of them, or they just come and put their bags in here and do work for the day so they don't lose the best part of the day. So I have a lot of those kind of hacks where I provide value to the speakers coming to speak with us.
And I know we're over on time here, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this. But I got 2 more questions for you. Number 1, let's say I'm listening. I'm an aspiring speaker, a professional speaker, an entrepreneur who speaks to grow my business, and I am thinking, "Oh my goodness, this guy's giving me so much value. Where the heck can I find Jeremy Torisk online so this podcast doesn't have to be the only time I ever see him in my life?"
There's not many Torisk out there. So put it into words, Torisk, across any social media or YouTube platform, and I will pop up, Jeremy Torisk. That's first of all. Yeah, Torisk, Torisk. But you risk nothing when you work with me. That's my late night FM DJ voice from Chris Voss. So yeah, that's it. That's the Jeremy Torisk, and you will find me somewhere. But better than that, Coaching Done Better, as you can see plastered on my shirt. I don't know if you see the thing in the background, but that's my sponsor. That's the company that I built for coaches to be seen. Coaches, in my experience, I've spent so much money on learning how Facebook algorithms work and Google paid ads, and they just change it like that. Bam, change it. I built 20,000 followers on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn, and all of a sudden, where are they? No one's seeing anything because something changed, right? No one can see anything. So I said, I'm going to build my own platform. So Coaching Done Better is a platform for coaches that I built. So that's where I drive everyone to Coaching Done Better. That's really where I want to do with my most giving to coaches. And I want to teach those coaches to be speakers. So I do all these speaking things I told you about for free. 3 hours a week, absolutely $0 to get me. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for an hour each of those days, just by having a coaching account on Coaching Done Better. So that's where they
Um,
go to coaching. They find me. They have my schedule is there. They can jump on my schedule and we could talk.
awesome. Now, last question. Let's say I'm an aspiring speaker, professional speaker, or entrepreneur who speaks to grow my business. What is one piece of advice you would give to that person to get them from where they are to where they want to go, from your decades of experience in sales and growing your speaking business, growing your mastermind, experience being president of an NSA chapter? What knowledge nugget would you want to share that would be a huge value gem for them?
So I want you to finish my sentence. Okay. A speaker, finish that. A speaker
Speaks.
speak everywhere. Go to the Rotaries, go to the chambers, go to the churches, go to the colleges, go to the high schools, go to your wife's PTA. Speak. You have to speak to be a speaker. And you're not going to make $10,000 until you make 5,000, until you make 3,000, until you make 1,000, until you make 100, until you make zero. But with those zeros, I call it the hidden and free. You can have somebody recording you. I have this digital mic that I have here, and I put it on my pocket, and it records me. And someone's in the back with an iPhone, or I bring a tripod and I film myself from the back, wide out, and I could zoom it in. But the audio is great because I have my own audio, and then I just merge the audio and video. So you have video of yourself speaking. After your speech, you take your phone and then you take cue cards, 3x5s, and you write, I just saw Jeremy Torisk at the Lindsay Valley PTA speaking about how parents worry too much about their kids' social media bullying, whatever you spoke about. And I thought, and then that's the first cue card. Then you have 2 more cue cards or 3 more with, these are the 3 takeaways that I'm going to put immediately. And he was so great to watch. He was very entertaining, or he was very memorable, or he really moved me. So I give people my phone on the recording, and I say, here, you hold this. I'm going to hold these. And I say, can you read this and pick your favorite one? And that way I get testimony from the people who saw me. They don't worry about it because they don't have to think of anything, and I get exactly what I want. They appreciate that. Some people do their own thing, but most people go, can you say something nice about me? Or even I say, give me an honest 5-star review. But then they go, I don't know what to say. Here, can you read? There, does that make you? Would you want to read that? Yes, yeah, that works. And usually they'll say something else, but it sparks them. So you get testimony, you get video, you get a rep, you get to see what has impact or what doesn't. You get to learn about how hard a pause is. Very hard. And then we teach people dynamic speaking with presence and motion and talking loud and talking soft and talking fast, talking slow. All these things you cannot get from big stages. You need to learn those on little stages.
It's like a warm up. Yeah.
And even when you're a $1 billion speaker, and McNeil is giving me this thing at the school. Sometimes you go there and there's 500 people there. Sometimes you're in a classroom talking to 20 business students. I don't know which one she's giving me. Do you think they pay her for the $500? Yes, 500 people, they'll pay her. They'll pay me if I do the 500. But if I'm talking to a room full of 15 business graduates, this is how much they're going to pay me.
Yeah.
But I say yes because I'm giving back to the community. I'm also these kids. If you do a good job, again, that's sneaky selling. They're business people. If you talk about your business coaching, these kids' parents have a lot of money, right? So, they're mostly entrepreneurs about to graduate, and they're going to use you to be their business coach. There's so much you can get from speaking for free.
Well, guys, if you're listening here and you've been getting so much value from what Jeremy's been sharing, just as I have, share this with a friend that you think is an aspiring speaker, or a professional speaker, or even an entrepreneur that speaks to grow their business, kind of like Jeremy's doing at the same time now here. And please leave a review, an honest review, an honest 5-star
honest review,
honest 5-star review, like Jeremy says. And I'm glad you listened here. Cheers, y'all. Thanks, Jeremy.